The object of Taxi Chronicles is to allow real riders with real stories share their experience and enhance your life. So sit back and enjoy the journey. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have an interesting guy all the way from Bulgaria who's been living in England, and he's been explaining the situation about, I asked him what his thoughts were on the Ukraine situation. So over to you. You tell us that story you was telling me.
So, my thoughts on the Ukraine situation is I've been following the war thoroughly since 2014, since before everything was on the news and stuff like that. Everything started from a protest, a simple protest, which was done by the Russians living in Ukraine, a small Russian population, which were protesting because they weren't treated fairly by the fellow Ukrainians living side by side them. So the protest continued in one of the cities, I forgot the name of the city, but the protest continued into the building, in one building. And as the protest continued, members of Ukrainians' Pravy sector, which is right sector in English, lit up cocktail molotovs and threw it at the building, resulting in burning over 50 Russian people alive inside the building. Afterwards, there were riots everywhere in the city. The Russian people living there had enough of it. They started a vote to become a part of the Russian Republic or the Russian Federation, which, as far as I know, over 80% of the vote voted in favor for joining the Russian Federation compared to 20%. Afterwards, Ukraine said that this is impossible. They said that they're not giving any piece of land back to Russia. So they started sending the army to stop the people and the protesters, resulting in the protesters to build their own rebel force, separatists as they are called by the Ukrainians, Russian separatists. And this war has been going on since 2014, as I said. But it's very interesting to me why nothing's been covered on the TV before that, why nothing was covered, like how the Russian people there who were living were being so heavily oppressed by the Ukrainian people. I'm not taking sides here, but there's always three versions of a story: mine, yours, and the correct version, the truth. That's why it's very important for televisions, reporters, and people to cover every side of the story, and not cover only one side of the story and feed it to us to try and show it, look, this is the right story, you know, these are the bad guys, the Russians are invading a country. The Russians are invading a country because they've waited 80 years for this conflict to resolve in Ukraine. Conflict didn't resolve. The people from the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk kept begging the Russian Federation to help them to do something about it, or to at least say that they're a sovereign state of Russia, which Russia did in 2022, I believe so. And since then, all hell's broke loose.
Who do you think will win?
I think there's no winners at the end, obviously, because as far as I know, 3 months ago there was an article of 100,000 people dead on each side, of the Russian or the Ukrainian side. But I don't know who's gonna win, but I know that Russia is not gonna stop, because if Russia stops, that means they're gonna lose, and if they lose, Ukraine is going to join EU and NATO, which means that America is gonna put bases in the country. And what happens when America puts bases in a country? Obviously, they put some sort of a weapon, a ballistic missile. So Russia is never going to allow this to happen. Russia is going to do everything in its power to stop Ukraine from joining EU, and to stop America from putting weapons next to their doorstep.
Okay, that's very interesting, because I never got insight there. And you're Bulgarian, so it's a neutral. What's the history like between Bulgaria and Russia, and Bulgaria and Ukraine?
So the history between Bulgaria and Russia is very, very good. brothers, we are called, because Bulgaria was enslaved for 500 years by the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey now.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to Russia, Bulgaria got freed, because Russia came and freed us from the Ottoman Empire. Since that period, Bulgaria is always grateful to Russia. It wasn't only Russians, it was Ukrainians and Russians at the time. There was no such thing as like separating Russian Ukrainians. There was no hatred for nobody at the time as well. Like in World War II, it was not Ukraine, Russia, it was USSR at that time for World War II. The thing is that Bulgaria has always had very good relations with Russia, but that shouldn't matter, because the point is, this war, you have to get the true side of the story, not only one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well. We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day, as well as vlogging on our social media channel. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.